As the enemy mercs draw close, lasers and missiles streaming from their vehicle turrets, Mike manages to fix the power plant and your cockpit lights spring on. Punch it, Dweebles! Dweebles hits the drive control and your ship blasts off the planet's surface, leaving the mercs behind. Hell yeah! That was a great game, Seth. Yeah, it was pretty cool, and the 2D deck plane is handy. I just wish we could really see the ship, you know? I made a miniature for it. Yeah, it's just so tiny. Yeah? Well, check this out. Holy crap, it's a Type S scout ship, and it's to scale with our miniatures. The landing gear folds inside it. The loading ramp swings open. Check out this sweet turret. Pew pew, pew 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 pew. The galley tables can fold up, and the stateroom doors can slide open. This stateroom is going to be mine. And check out the details on the ship's bridge. Now this is an engine room my character can work in. Dude, this is incredible. You like that? Then get a load of this. The drives can light up. It's the most beautiful thing I ever seen. Hello Internet, Seth Skorikowski, and today we'll be taking a look at the Traveler Type S scout ship from 2nd Dynasty. Officially licensed from Far Future Enterprises and working closely with Marc Miller, 2nd Dynasty has made a 3D printable version of the venerable spaceship that gamers have been storming the galaxy with since 1977. Traveler players have spent decades poring over the various illustrations of the Type S, a ship that for many travelers, including my own players, was called their first starship. And studying those same illustrations, 2nd Dynasty has made them a physical reality. Coming in at over 2 feet length, this thing is a beast. My version is the pre-release version, and I believe there have been a couple updates to it since. For the sake of full disclosure, 2nd Dynasty reached out to me. They knew that I did reviews for Traveler products, so they were wanting to know if I'd be interested in looking over their scout ship. I said, hell yes, I'd love to look this thing over. So they asked me if I knew anything about 3D printing, to which I replied, no, I don't know anything about 3D printing. So they offered to send me a pre-printed version of the ship, but I said no because while I don't know anything about 3D printing, one of my players does, and he was excited to try to print this thing out. So 2nd Dynasty sent us the files and we went ahead and printed this thing out. Now, I'm sure that they wanted us to have this thing printed and reviewed sometime before their crowdfunding campaign ended, which we didn't, so sorry about that, guys. It took us 490 hours worth of filament printing in order to get this ship, including some misprints because we had to do a few pieces over again. I also wanted to have everything painted and everything for this video and everything done right. But outside of a little bit of minor painting that we have left, this thing is done and I am ready to give my report. The ship is scaled for 28mm miniatures, and the detail is insanely good. I mean, even a high-detailed printer might not be able to get all the detail in this thing. For most of it, we used ABS, printed at 150 microns and a 0.4 nozzle. Most of it didn't need supports, though the doorways did need to have supports printed with it. Some pieces we used resin using an Epax X1 printer, such as the flight bridge, all of the doors, the laser cannon, and the standing consoles. We used resin because it allows for more detail and is stronger for those delicate and thin parts. The ship features a top deck engine room, then the main deck below where the drives, airlock, air raft hangar, galley, staterooms, fresher, life support, and bridge are all located. Then the lower deck hold, which the cargo hold for the Type S has never been known to be that large. Iris valves can be removed to show if they're open. Stateroom doors can slide open and close, though the tolerances are pretty tight on those doors, so we used resin on them to keep the doors as thin as possible in order for them to move more freely. Now, due to the shape, the doors for the armory and the ship's locker are unable to slide open, so you just have to lift those out. Now, one detail I love is the fuel tanks and the fuel lines that run along the edge, which I've painted orange. It just looks fantastic with the little variances and how the fuel line bunches and bends in the various little compartments. You can also install a light kit. The button for it is on the back, and the channels are located on the back panel, allowing for the wiring and to house the battery compartment. This kit is the ice blue with port and starboard running lights. You can wire the LEDs yourself, or you can pick up a kit like this one, which was made by Evan Designs. Now, one criticism that I have is that the battery compartment was just a little bit too small, so George had to cut out a little bit of battery space for the wiring above the battery. Also, the grooves were a little too wide to hold the wires in, so we had to place a little tape on them in order to keep the wires inside the grooves. Because this is such a massive ship to print with all these little parts, one thing that I cannot recommend enough is to pick up the Deck Designer program that Second Dynasty makes. This gives you a detailed and fully assembled ship in a 3D model and walks you through the step-by-step of assembling the scout ship. You can grab and highlight individual pieces, change perspective, and move around inside the 3D model. I consider the Deck Designer a must-have for assembling all the pieces to this ship. The model uses the OpenLOCK system, so pieces can clip together, they can be replaced or changed around. The crowdfunding campaign funded some variant rooms and panels, so you can modify your ship to whatever configuration it is that you like. And you can see that there are a lot of individual pieces that make up this ship. Now, using the Deck Designer, let me give you a little tour of what this thing looks like on the inside as if it was a real ship.
Okay, coming in through the cargo ramp. It'll take us into the cargo hold. Once again, pretty small cargo hold here. And then you can see there's a first aid kit on the wall as well as a fire extinguisher. You'll see plenty of those around the ship. Through this iris valve, we'll then head up this ladder here, and that'll take us to the engineering deck. So we've got our 2 jump drives here, as well as our maneuver drives here and here. You can actually see the M printed on the backs of those. And we've got our 2 standing consoles. Through this door, we've got the ship's airlock, and you can see different lockers that the crew uses, another first aid kit, fire extinguisher, and then these chairs here. And going all the way across, that'll take us to the air raft hangar. This did not come with an air raft, though there is an air raft that's now available as part of the rewards. You can see different signs around the ship saying what's behind certain doors, just kind of giving your way through. It's a nice little way that they've shown all the different parts of the ship. I wish my painting was good enough that I could show all these, but you can see them also in the floor, such as that ladder there. And before we go through there, let's go ahead and head on up, and this will take us to the power plant. So you can see its little sign has the little atomic symbol on it. A small power plant room here. Another door that leads out the back of the ship, another console, and then heading on down through here, back in the drive room, and then we find ourselves in the galley. So we've got our folding tables as well as some cabinets. I have no idea what that thing is. I assume it's some sort of entertainment center. And then over here, this is a wonderful little thing. We've got the sink. It's even got a coffee cup, little coffee maker here. Once again, another first aid kit. Evidently, they think that our travelers are going to be accident prone, which of course they will be. Then we come to this hallway. We've got a few of the staterooms. Once again, little sign above the door. Staterooms themselves are pretty simple, just a bed, small screen, and that's pretty much it. A little intercom on the wall there. You can see the small handles that are around each of the doors here. Then heading back into the hall, to the left, this is going to be our fresher. So we've got a sink, little toilet, shower up in the wall with a drain in the floor. And then across the hall, we've got life support rooms. So we've got different tanks of gas, different monitoring computers around here. And then through this iris valve, we can go ahead and get to the bridge. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of these doors here. So heading into the bridge, so you have a couple chairs with the different computer terminals. There is a small access port here. This does not actually open on the 3D print, but you can see there's a little bit beyond there up in the nose of the ship. And then heading up out of the ship, you can see our turret up here, which this has a laser cannon, a missile rack, and a sandcaster all on. So we have a nice little triple turret there. So, there you go. There's the scout ship. Wonderful, wonderful 3D model. It's very fun to be able to walk through the hallways of this thing.
Now, I do have a few criticisms of this thing. For one, the folding landing gear, which is pretty cool, the back legs don't give us much problems being able to fold up inside and the hatch doors closing. I can't say that for the front landing gear, however. We can't get it to fold inside and then being able to close the doors, so we simply have to remove the forward landing gear if we want to close those doors. Now, that's not a big problem itself. It's pretty easy to pop that out. The problem is how fragile the front landing gear is. While it can certainly hold the ship's weight, this particular piece can't handle anything more than that. So if the ship was set down pretty hard, or your friend puts a little bit of weight on the nose of the ship, like they put their hand on it and they're kind of leaning to get a better look of something inside, that little bit of extra weight is enough to snap these little hooks or have them shear off completely, such as this one right here, which had that happen to it. So to solve that issue, we did this one in resin because resin is stronger. Essentially, all the moving parts that go into the landing gear means that we're sacrificing stability for cool factor. I might suggest that if you're going to be using this thing for in a game versus just having it sit on your shelf, if you're going to be using it in your game, it's going to be getting a little bit rougher use than that you might want to go ahead and just fuse the landing gear joints together. There is a variant landing gear that was unlocked in the crowdfunding campaign, one of which is wheels. In a recent video by Second Dynasty, they were showing the progress on the wheeled landing gear, and they mentioned that this is not going to fold. So I'd be interested to get a look at those as a replacement, since that configuration looks like it might be a bit hardier than the current configuration that I have. Now, speaking of thin parts, there are some areas that are very delicate due to how thin they are, such as handles outside of the doors. The arms on the airlock chairs, one of those already had to glue back together. And the braces for the rear fuel container. Your thumb can easily snap through one of those when picking this thing up, as evident by these two missing ones here. Next, the folding tables are pretty awesome. They're printed as a single piece, hinge and all. Now, the first time that you unfold them, it breaks a tiny little piece inside that hinge, allowing the hinge to swing. The idea is that once it's installed up against a bulkhead, that wall keeps the table and the bench in place and not dropping all the way down to the deck. The problem is that while some certainly do work that way, not all of them work that way as planned, so they're going to end up drooping like this one does. So I just keep this one in an upright position, that way it's not just kind of sitting on the floor. Now, these are all pretty small issues, and they can be easily worked around, but if you aren't expecting to have any issues at all, it can be pretty annoying to discover some. The biggest issue that I have is accessing the bottom deck. The topmost deck is easy. Simply remove the top of the ship, and there it is. The middle deck, same thing, just remove the cover. The lower deck, though, is a bit more complicated to get to. First, we have to remove the back plate. That's no big deal. We have 6 clips that hold that in place, and it just pops right off. Once it's off, we then slide out the drive compartment. Unfortunately, the walls, specifically this piece right here at the airlock, means that we have to carefully pull the ship apart in order to pop this wall out. Now, my solution, and I'm going to be doing this once we finish recording this video, I just haven't done it yet because I wanted to show you this, is I'm going to be cutting off these little clips that hold that wall section in place, so that way it just slides all out with the drive room as one piece. Once it's installed in the ship, the drives and everything is going to hold this wall in place, so these clips really don't do much except for just get in the way when you're trying to get to the bottom deck. Everything else in the ship is pretty easy to get to. In an in-game situation, that's what I want them to have, is be able to get to each deck very quickly, as maybe we're moving miniatures around inside of it, being able to show where everything is. So the bottom layer really stands out as being problematic because it would get in the way of being able to use this very easily during a game session. Again, this is the beta version of this ship. Second Dynasty has talked about doing several updates to it, and I believe they probably have done a couple updates to it once they launched the crowdfunding campaign, so maybe these issues have already been fixed or they've got some sort of workaround already in place for them. Those are by no means a deal breaker or just some sort of massive complaint, but I really just find them annoying more than anything. Finally, while the OpenLOCK pieces are very cool and very convenient, because there's just so many of these things, the ship can get a bit wobbly due to all the joints that it's made from, so we fused several of these together in order to add just some rigidity in order to keep this ship stable. Easy enough fix. And like with the folding landing gear, having it consist of so many small parts means that we lose some stability because of that, so you can just fuse some floor panels or wall panels together in order to gain some rigidity, but the cost of that is that you're not going to be able to future modify those parts of the ship without having to reprint large portions of basically starting over from scratch. Overall, I think this thing is badass as hell. This is the closest I can compare to getting a Millennium Falcon toy back when I was a kid. I love this thing, and in the hands of a skilled painter, this thing could look insanely good. I honestly don't know the practicality, though, of using this thing in a gaming session. I've said for a while now that I would like to see more adventures that take place exclusively aboard a starship, like, some sort of adventure that happens while the ship is traveling through jump space and the player characters never actually leave the ship. And this would be perfect for something like that. But for most groups, I don't see this really being used in a lot of sessions. More of just a conversation piece or something that they look at versus something that they're actively using in-game or using that much in-game. But it is still awesome as hell. And I'm sure that having one is going to motivate some game masters out there to maybe have a little bit more adventures that only take place aboard the ship. That way they've got a good excuse to use this and use this a lot. Now, Second Dynasty has mentioned that they are looking into making a free trader ship as one of their next Traveler projects, which I think would be awesome as hell. I am curious to see exactly how huge that thing is going to be because it's a 200-ton ship versus this 100-ton ship, so I definitely want to see that thing. Anyway, that is it. Huge thank you to Second Dynasty for sending me the files for this. I deeply apologize that it took me a lot longer than planned to get this whole thing finished. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see some more of my stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos, just hit that subscribe button and that little bell notification thingy. Till next time, travelers, you have a great day.